In New Zealand, flight NZ8192 from Timaru Richard Pearce to Wellington International on Tuesday the 29th of December 2020 on a de Havilland Dash 8-300. Scheduled departure at 11:45 a.m. and a flight time of 1 hour and 15 minutes. I checked in a car on the way to the airport, but it didn't make a lot of difference. Timaru Airport doesn't have any kiosks and you have to check in with a person. So when we got there, we essentially had to check in again. We would have had to anyway because of the puppy. To take a dog on an Air New Zealand domestic flight, you have to book a bag for them. They make sure they have enough hold space when you get to the airport. That's when you pay your $75. With every penny for man's best friend, the counter service at Timaru Airport is always pretty awesome. They do far more for you than in the bigger airports. They really look after you. Thanks Timaru ground crew, you're amazing. After checking in, I went outside and watched the arrival of our plane. The terminal at Timaru Airport is very small and it's quite inefficiently laid out. Arriving passengers and departing passengers crisscross a couple of times, which isn't fantastic. This is mitigated by the fact there's only 2 flights in and 2 flights out of Timaru each day, so there's not a lot of passengers to get criss-crossed. There's no cafe or shop in the terminal, and there's certainly no airline lounge. There's a couple of vending machines as a stopgap, but there's also this amazing coffee machine, and it's totally free to use. So that's pretty awesome. Free hot chocolate. I don't mind if I do. Thank you. So I watched our puppy get loaded into the hold, and not long after that they called our flight. It was all pretty relaxed. They checked our boarding passes and on we went. As we walked across the apron, we could see one of the ground crew keeping our puppy entertained. That's nice. I know I've mentioned it before and I'm sure I'll mention it again. I love getting up close and personal to the outside of my plane. Boarding was very orderly and in no time we're in our seats. For today's flight, I chose seats slightly further back than I usually go with. I don't know what I was thinking and I have this wonderful view of the landing gear and this engine. But here we are and we'll do what we can and I'm sure it'll all work out fine. According to FlightAware, we left the gate bang on time at 11:45 a.m. We taxied for 5 minutes and took off at 11:50.
Lightweight handheld electronic devices can be used at any time. Please ensure that these are switched to flight mode as we do not have Wi-Fi on this aircraft. Please stow larger devices such as laptops in the bag underneath the seat in front of you or the overhead lockers for departure. Please make sure your seatbelts are securely fastened, armrests are lowered, tray tables are folded away, and your window shades are up. Civil aviation rules do require you to comply with all crew instructions and signs while aboard this aircraft. One final reminder, please ensure all transmitting devices have been switched to flight mode. Thank you. I do appreciate your attention.
Timaru Airport has 3 runways, but only one is asphalt. We taxied by taxiway Alpha over to runway 02 and we took off towards the north.
Hello again everyone. Once it is now safe to use large to proof electronic devices such as laptops. Arches are kept in flight in airplane mode. For your convenience, we do have a toilet located at the front right of the cabin. If you require my assistance throughout the flight, please don't hesitate to press the orange button on the panel above your head. We'll be coming for the cabin very shortly. Have a glass of mineral water, shortly followed by cookie dough and biscuits, and then your choice of tea or coffee. And for now, I do invite you to sit back and relax and wish you an enjoyable flight. Producer Funky Nui, Atara. Kia ora.
After we took off, we continued to track to the northeast. We took a slight left over Christchurch and then flew up the east coast of the South Island towards Wellington. Okay, let's get on with the snack. As promised, we had water, a cup of tea, and a biscuit. The flight crew was super friendly and the water was slightly cooled and pleasant. 5 out of 10. Good water, Air New Zealand. The cup of tea was freshly brewed. I like a little bit of milk in my tea, so I grabbed one of the little bottles that was on offer. After a pleasant positive affirmation from the flight crew, I poured my milk into my tea. It was a little bit too hot to drink, so I poured in a little bit of my water. The tea wasn't quite as strong as I liked, but slightly underdone is much better than overbrewed. I'm going to give it a slightly tough 6 out of 10. Slightly weak tea. The biscuit was a classic cookie time cookie, which I haven't had in a long time. It has quite a lot of baking soda in it, so if you like that, you'll love this, and I do, so I did. It's an 8 out of 10. Nice one, Air New Zealand. On descent, they gave us a lolly to help our ears pop, so I'm going to boost up the biscuit by 1 point to 9 out of 10. Nice one, Air New Zealand. So what's the snack average? The water, which was decidedly average, got an average 5. The tea, which was okay but a little bit weak, got a 6. And the biscuit, which was great, got an 8, with a bonus +1 for the lolly. That's 9. That's an average of 6.7, which rounds to 7. Good snack, Air New Zealand. Okay, onto the plane. This plane, ZK-NEJ, had its first flight on the 19th of April 2006, making it 14 and a half years old when we took this flight. It's officially had 3 owners, but all of them are Air New Zealand or Air New Zealand subsidiaries, so really only one owner. It's configured with 50 economy class seats, and I was in seat 9A, tucked in under the engine. I quite like these little Q300s or Dash 8s or whatever it is you want to call them, and Air New Zealand has 23 of them, but there's a wee problem with them. The average age is 14.7 years old. And to make things slightly worse, they stopped making them in 2006. In fact, Air New Zealand got 2 of the last 3 ever made. So they really need to be thinking about their replacement strategy. The problem is, no one much seems to be making 50-seat commercial airliners at the moment. I spent way more time than I care to admit researching this, but I'm no expert. However, my total amateur opinion is that this end of the market's a complete mess. The ERJ145 looks like it would be an okay option, but they stopped making it in 2020, so I'm not sure you could be confident on your parts and servicing deal. The CRJ200 would be perfect, although that also stopped production in 2006, so that's a no. So between those aircraft, the ERJs, the CRJs and the Q300s, there's quite a few aircraft coming up for replacement in the next decade. Depending on whose numbers you look at, it's either hundreds or thousands of aircraft. That's a lot of planes. Let's have a wee look at the options. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries have their Space Jet, but both the M90 and M100 are too big. And despite there being over 200 back orders, I can't figure out if they're actually making them or not. Mitsubishi also have the ongoing parts contracts for the CRJs, and I put them on this list because it looks like they own the certifications for the CRJs as well, although they have said they don't plan on making any. I think Mitsubishi probably aren't an option. The MA600 from Xi'an feels quite viable. First produced in 2010, 18 have been made and over 300 ordered. I can't see Air New Zealand going for this though, because it's a whole new parts line that would result in a whole lot of training for their technical crews, and they have no pilots trained for this aircraft. So they'll be starting from scratch on both those fronts. I think it's out. The Illusion IL114 has the same parts and training barriers as the MA60. Production's been off and on since 1990, but it seems like they've only made 20. And it's a little bit big with a standard configuration of 64 seats. I think it's out too. Our last hopeful is the ATR42. It's still in active production and about 500 have already been made. It's a shortened version of the ATR72, so shares a whole bunch of parts, and as far as I'm aware, pilots can be certified for both. Air New Zealand already own 29 ATR72s, so this feels like a no-brainer slam dunk. Why wouldn't you? So why haven't they? I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't know, and usually when I put up something like this in a video, someone out there knows much better and says something in the comments. So maybe read the comments and someone much smarter than me will have set the record straight. Thanks, random stranger, whoever you're gonna be. For such a small plane, the cabin feels really spacious, although there's not a lot of space in the overhead bins, and a standard carry-on suitcase is a bit of a squeeze, and you'd really only fit a handbag or small backpack under the seat in front. The seats are spaced 32 inches apart, which is just fine. The seats themselves aren't massively comfortable, but they're fine for a short domestic flight. The tray table was a pretty good size. Everything worked and was well maintained, and the place is clean and tidy. In the overhead panel there was lights, fresh air and a call button. So a 14.5-year-old plane that's in really good nick. I'm going to give this 6 out of 10. Good plane in New Zealand. We flew up the east coast of the South Island and then across the Cook Strait. Did a right-hand turn, then over the west coast of the North Island around Porirua. Another right-hand turn and into Wellington from the north. Wellington Airport has one runway. We approached from the north and landed on 16. We exited the runway via taxiway Alpha 8, then to Bravo 8, Charlie 8 and over to gate 11 of the domestic terminal.
Luggage will be available inside the terminal in approximately 10 to 15 minutes. If continuing on the Air New Zealand service, then your checked-in luggage will be transferred to your next flight. If you have a regional connection, it is important you make your way into the terminal and scan your boarding pass in the regional departure lounge. Please make sure you take all your personal belongings with you and be careful in accessing the overhead lockers. For your personal safety, please remain seated until the captain has switched the seatbelt sign off. Electronic devices must not be used while crossing the tarmac. Also, please follow the clearly marked path and visit the terminal. On behalf of Air New Zealand, the Star Alliance Network, we'd like to thank you once more for flying with us this morning. It's been our pleasure having you on board, and we look forward to your company again in the future. Taki te anō, mā te wā.
We landed at 12:55, which was 10 minutes late, and then taxied for 2 minutes. We arrived at gate 11 at 12:57, 4 minutes ahead of schedule.
It's a bit of a struggle.
It's always a struggle.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
After what was possibly the clumsiest disembarkation ever, I walked across the tarmac and into the terminal. I then glanced back for one last look at my plane. I do like these little Q300s. I'll sum up as we head down to pick up our baggage. For the snack, we had the water, a cup of slightly weak tea, and the classic cookie time cookie. That got 7 out of 10. And the plane, a 14.5-year-old Q300, got 6 out of 10. That's an average of 6.5. Ka pai, Air New Zealand. That means well done and te reo Māori. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and then watch every single video we've ever made. And every one we will make. Thanks.